So the concept is, it's a talk by me, but I'm really looking for you to help. Open source is not a new concept. In fact, the model that we have of the Microsofts of the world is probably the new one. This guy, Isaac Newton, really the initiator of modern science as we know it, was quoted as saying, if I've seen further, this is the modified version for, it was for reading today. If I've seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. And so the concept is we understand that what we can give to the world is really a result of everything that's gone before, all the accumulated knowledge. What's the point of starting again? And in the scientific community, we've been doing that ever since, 5 centuries or so. We've been building on the knowledge that others have created and freely building on it, altering it, checking it, changing it. Pretty much what we're talking about in open source. So it's not that revolutionary, really. A bit of background is that a product called Unix came up in the late 60s, 70s. I used it when I went to university to do an IT course in the early 80s. And it's really, really nerdy. And there are groups around, OSDC, for instance, Open Source Developers Conference. They love being able to write code at a prompt, a Unix prompt. And they're very, very, very clever, but for most of us, it's totally inaccessible. The only important thing about this is Unix came up and then there were various variations that appeared. The one that we're interested in is the one in the centre, the GNU project. And Richard Stallman, quintessential nerd. I did a Google images of nerds. Do you notice anything about that? They all got glasses. That's something, isn't it? Why is that? I don't know. That's so unfair. But anyway, as I'm wearing glasses today. So, sorry? No. Okay. This is where the sophisticated audio visuals come in. These little building blocks, this is the GNU project. Can you see this? Can you see this up in the cheap seats? Yes. Very good. How much did you pay for those seats, by the way? More than... Yeah. The other thing I learned from Brian is that it's very important to do a costume change. It's not quite as dramatic as this. I want to show that I'm not only a boss. I'm also one of you. You know, I want you to feel the love. Oh look, the alarm's gone off. Wake up! Yeah, I think we're okay. Are you awake? Did that do it? Coffee's marvellous. Oh, it's coffee. That's good. Should I set it to go in another 5 minutes? Oh, okay. Fair enough. Hey, who's my babysitter today? Who's babysitting? Who's telling me 10 and 5 minutes? No one. Have I got to do it myself? Oh, for heaven's sakes. Thank you, Mark. That's good. Okay. This is just a great concept invented by a nerd. No, I won't do that. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to make all these little blocks of software and we're going to give them to you because we love you. We're going to let you use those, and all we're going to say to you is that if you build anything on this, you're going to have to pass that on as well. Recognition back to the people who built this bottom layer, and love upwards to other people. While this was happening, this is sort of a famous event in computing history. Bill Gates, rather like Alice Goods, actually, superhero of the PC industry, wrote this letter to hobbyists, which was a synonym for hackers, people who shared code, and said, the reality is most of you steal software. And he moved in the direction of corporatising the software business, and of course made himself very, very wealthy, and nowadays has become quite a prominent philanthropist, which is a wonderful thing. Meanwhile, this guy, quintessential super nerd, Richard Stallman. Has anyone had a genius working for them? A top dollar genius. Peter, you work for yourself. Geniuses are, in my experience, totally unmanageable. I had a genius working for me. Absolutely brilliant guy. And I remember being in a meeting and I said something. And he said, that's totally illogical. Because in April, you said, that doesn't work. That you're saying something different. You're contradicting yourself. And I wanted to say, can't I be inconsistent at least once? Is that okay? He would constantly be aware of the exact facts of what was going on. It was awe-inspiring. This guy's like that. He came up with these little black matchboxes and came up with the concept of copy left. Hello, Nina. Oh, I was worried you weren't going to come.
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, here's the concept. These little black boxes, I give you these little black boxes on the basis that you can use them however you want. That you can change them and vary them and recode them as you see fit. You can share them out. You can take little bits and pieces. I had a conversation with Peter Van Westen the other day, and he said, oh, the way I build code is I just grab other people's code and change it and reuse it. Open source, it's wonderful. Freedom to share and copy, and also freedom to redistribute your updated copy. Now, we in the Joomla community, are the direct result of a fork. Now, if you don't know, a fork means you take some software base, and you duplicate it and you head off in another direction. Quite very much allowed by the GPL, that the open source copyright agreement that pertains to Joomla. And they did that, and so we are the rogues. We're the people who've headed off in another direction. Quite possibly happened here in Melbourne. There are the four rules. Then this guy came along, Okay. And he said, I'll put these things on top. I'm just mentioning Linux because it's one of the main ones. I probably got another L here somewhere, but you get the idea. There we go. So his Linux software has the foundation in that GNU code that Stillman was largely responsible for. And so he said to people above him, he shared the love. I give my software to everyone else, and I give my respect to the GNU project underneath me. That game, did we have any people who stood around in a little group shaking hands? Did that not happen at all? I saw it. You did? Yeah? Did any bastard come along and break it up? Not in our group. No? You didn't let them in? That's right. I have a concept, I don't know whether I'm right, that open source, the cooperative agreement between a group of people to play nice, is pretty fragile. Now, I'm actually disappointed that some of those bastards didn't roam around and upset your happiness. Sorry? It happened to you? Yes, you were after love. Next time I might give the bastards fewer points. I don't know. What I did notice, by the way, is that some of the nice people, Jenny, you might have been one of those nice people, they actually extended their hand a microsecond beforehand. You might have done that. That might have been the flaw in your strategy. They extended their hand, and then, of course, the bastards, quick-thinking bastards, went like that. So, look, I'm not sure it was true science, actually. It was maybe just a little bit of fun. And then, even better, we had PHP. Sits on top there. Isn't it fun? I haven't got to do building blocks for such a long time. And then on top of that, we've probably got MySQL sitting up there, all dependent on, well, pretty much, on what was sitting underneath it. And then poor old Joomla, that's up here. I don't know whether this is going to hold up, but anyway, you get the concept. So it's right up here that we exist. Well, people like Peter, they sit up here and they do really, really cute stuff, sitting right up the top of the tree. And so the work that Peter does, as brilliant as it is dependent on all of this. So he needs to pay respect to the lower parts of the pyramid, and he extends the love to us. So the open source people talk about free as in beer, free as in liberty. This is free as in liberty, free to do what you want. Now, if someone wants to take Peter's components and really zap them up, turn them around, they're sort of allowed to do that within reason. They can even tip them up on their side, which I'm not going to do because it's about to fall down. Tip it on its side, paint it a different colour, market it separately. There are some rules about playing nice and all that sort of stuff. But fundamentally, we have the right to go and grab Peter's code, change it a bit, remarket it. You won't get on the JED, the Joomla Extensions Directory. They'll bar you, but you can do it. Oh, I want to show you this. Do I hit PC, Patrick? Or lectern laptop? How do I change it over? Is Patrick around? PC didn't work. Oh, no. Or lectern laptop? Is that it? We've always said Linux. And I heard the esteemed member from Leeds, say Linux. You say Linux, I say Linux. What is it?
Linus or Linus? What's exactly your preferred pronunciation?
When I speak Swedish, it's Linus. When I speak Finnish, it's Linus. When I speak English, it's Linus. And I really don't care how people pronounce my name. But Linux is always Linux.
It's Linux. Australia rules. Okay, won't bother about that. Last slide. That's not so special, is it? I have to hit that as well. Blanked, changing. There we go. Question, why would people use Write software for free? I think for some people it feels good. It's what you're used to. You have the opportunity to change it if you feel like that. Not sure about the third one. This is from a paper that I read. I'll tell you why I use open source, why I got into open source. I got into open source because I liked the concept. Really? I think it's something, for someone who comes from the left-hand side of the political perspective, I think it's a comfortable place to be. And so I did that. I was an imposter at a developers conference in New York, Joomla Developers Conference. And we all had to stand up and say complimentary things at the end. And I stood up and said, it seems to me that the people who are in this community are pretty much from the left-hand side of politics. And I said, does anyone here vote Republican? And a little man right up the back said, I do. And maybe there's a bit of that there as far as I'm concerned. I want to throw it over to you. Why are you in open source? I'm going to hit Peter with it first. Have you got that microphone? Do you know where it is? And it'll be... Where's Patrick? I'm going to interview him.
Hi there.
Why did you get into open source? Not Joomla, but open source.
Because of the financial issues I had. That was what started me using.
The whole idea... How about that? Magic.
Now, I love learning new stuff, and open source is a great place to learn new stuff because you can just get into the code and see how other people have done stuff. I also love spreading that knowledge that I gathered. So that's about it.
So you have the opportunity, I understand from talking to you, a fundamental issue is that you have the opportunity to learn from these lower levels of the stack, how they do things, or maybe your peers as well.
Correct.
How they do things, because it's not closed. What about Norm?
Well, I come from a far different avenue. I'm a capitalistic pig at heart.
Are you?
And
that's why you did so well in the game, Norm.
And for me, it's all about what's best for the customer. And open source is not only good business sense, it's also, in my opinion, it's a risky thing to go down the proprietary level, the proprietary lane, because there are so many examples of proprietary software either being disbanded by their company, by the people that produce it, X, Y, and Z. And from a business point of view, the advantage of an open source solution is that if company X disbands it, there's no reason why company Y can't take it up again and continue to develop it. So when people go down the path of investing not only money but also resources, and I'm referring to customers and clients, there's a lot riding on that investment. So in my opinion, and I think more and more businesses are realising this now, that I'm a little bit of a semantic person in terms of using the correct words. I actually get a little bit antsy when people say that open source is free. It's not free at all, because no one owns it. So something can't be free if no one owns it. Do you know what I mean? So and that's the key. The key is that if you're investing resources into some software that no one owns, then you can always be assured that you can access it.
It's free in terms of the liberties that we were talking about before.
But as I said, so often it's referred to as free as in a monetary free, and the monetary frees shouldn't even be considered, because no one owns it to give it away for free in the first place. It's open source. It's a totally different concept. And when I was in corporate days doing IT support and systems administrator, I was in a Microsoft-centric environment, and you were locked into it. You were totally locked into it. So yes, there have been times when, yes, it's great that you don't have to pay to use it, but the more important aspect is the fact that if you're investing time and resources into this technology, then you can always be assured that you can always have it.
I am interested in the similarity between what we're trying to do with open source and evolution. That the strong species that adapts will thrive, and I guess Joomla might come to that class. And the weaker species, if you will, like dear old Mambo, wither on the vine. And so that in itself adds to the robustness. We're not depending on one line. How did that happen? That was going to be the end of the presentation when that came down. I want to... You stayed awake the whole time, I noticed. Thank you. I spoke to Nina. I'm going to put Nina in it here. I spoke to Nina about this last night. And I told her about this game, which was really good, Nina. You missed it. No, it wasn't. Oh, wasn't it? No. Rob didn't do very well. And Nina told me that she's a psychologist and had some really interesting things to say about why people get into open source. So I'd like you to.
What did I say?
Oh, that's dumped it now. No? Okay. No problems. Why did other people get into open source? What attracted you? I'm not talking about Joomla. Did you make a decision that this was an environment that you felt comfortable with? No, nodding is not good enough. This is a participation sport, Simon.
Pete, I'm sort of fairly heavily into open source with a sort of a background of Microsoft stuff. But it's basically, you can nearly always get the best of the breed out of open source. In other words, if you look for the best of the breed in open source, you can find it in almost everything. In Video LAN or some of the stuff. Now, there's still stuff where you need to go to proprietary stuff simply because there isn't anything in that particular area. But if there's something in the area that is better, why not take it? In other words, it can be a very practical approach.
Yeah.
Can I add? Right, I feel, Pete,
thank you,
I
thank
feel
you.
I've let you down. I've come
That's
late
okay.
and
you came all this way.
I think my memory was that I was talking, I work in the film industry, and of course proprietary work and creativity is very hard to copyright and protect in that industry, and I think we've all sort of let it go and said if you have a creative idea and as soon as you share it with someone else it's theirs. You cannot protect it really, in truth. And I think that experience means that some of us, I think, have started to reframe what's in it for us to be part of giving creatively when you can't necessarily control it. And I think that there is something about that community that enriches you too, and if you can give and someone adds to it, the truth is you can get as well. And in a way it's you give and get. And I think that sense that you're all in the same boat, except if someone breaks the rules. And I think then it changes it.
You should have been in the game.
But I think in truth, we forget that we get a lot personally from being part of a community. And I think we keep factoring in that even though I have strong capitalist principles and I still run a business, I think we underestimate the fact that people want to belong to something where they feel they can participate on equal grounds. And I think that's what's missing a lot.
Thank you very much. Just to finish it up, one of the things that I hope would come out of that game is that cooperation is easily broken. If you'd had a nice little group and Alice had come to you, it would have broken up the trust in that group. I think, personally, I think open source is a bit like that. It's a fragile beast and it needs to be protected.
Can I ask one question?
One very quick one because I've just got the...
Why is it that so many people in the open source area tend to use Macs rather than PCs, where the Apple environment tends to be more closed than the PC environment? Because they're cooler.
I'm not going to enter into that, Robert. I'll tell you exactly why I use both. Why I use a Macintosh, it's lighter. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming along.